On AI Applied today, we are talking about a big release from OpenAI. This is when they've just released O3 and O4 Mini. Now, it's a funny thing, right? So, first of all, with the O, excuse me, naming conventions, that's how you know it's a reasoning model. So you know that. By the way, I don't know if people know why they skipped O2. It's apparently because, like in the UK, I think it's like a telecom company or something like that. So they had copyright issues there. But on this, it's interesting right off the bat, Jaden, to me, because OpenAI has sort of gone back and forth on what they were going to release when, and they'd been talking about ChatGPT 5 and all that, and then they were like, oh, we're not going to release this, and then all of a sudden they sort of pulled the rug, and they're like, you know what, we're going to wait on 5 for reasons that we could speculate about, and we are going to release O3 and O4 Mini. And for me, I mean, I sort of saw this in the news, but I think other people were more like, "Oh my gosh, this is wild!" And so it kind of got me testing it. But I know that you were testing it, right? What were you finding when you were sort of like testing this stuff out?
Yeah, overall, I actually think it's a great model. I'll share their post over on X, what they said. They said, introducing OpenAI O3 and O4 Mini, our smartest and most capable models to date. They say that every single time. It's not really necessary. I would hope that it's the smartest, but whatever, I digress. They
Not
say,
as good as last time, but here we go.
yeah, it's almost as good as our last one. This one sucks, but we made a new one. Yeah, right. So they say, for the first time, our reasoning models can agentically use and combine every tool within ChatGPT, including web search, Python, image analysis, file interpretation, and image generation.
Wow.
Cool. When they say our models can agentically use, like, okay, I don't know, they're just hopping on the agent bandwagon. There's really
Yeah, I
no
think you're
need
right.
to say that, but whatever. I know I'm criticizing. The model is good. I really appreciate this because the thing I have been absolutely sick about, and you have heard me mention this 1,000 times on this podcast, is they have, like, if you go to ChatGPT and you go to the drop down right now of all the different models that you can use, and it's even worse, all the APIs that developers can use. So, like, if I show you the drop down of all of the ones that developers can have access to. But anyways, there's like
Yeah.
100 of them. We got 4.0, 4.0 with scheduled tasks, 4.5, O3, O4 mini, O4 mini high. 90% of people have no clue what the difference of all of these models are, which is fine, except for the fact that some of these have completely different capabilities. Some of them can do image upload. Some of them cannot search the web. It's like, no one really knows what they're getting out of this. And so I think now that they finally have this new their new model, their O3, it has everything combined. You just know if you're using O3, it's their best model and it has all of the features and capabilities. And I think moving forward, anytime they come out with a new model, I would like to see these new models only have access to everything, not just little bits and pieces. So just right off the bat, I will say I've been impressed because it has access to everything, unlike previous models. And I really, really hope that this trend is what they do in the future.
Yeah, this is huge for me as well. It sort of brings me back. And by the way, when I say brings me back, I mean we're just talking about the last 2 years basically. But remember, like I used to go into different modes for image generation, different modes for code interpreter, and all that sort of stuff. And then you just had to sort of drag and drop things across. One of the things that I had been waiting for was exactly this functionality, which was being able to work in reasoning. But if it couldn't upload, files, or couldn't search the web, or couldn't look at images, then it was still useful. But this is what we want. We want everything to be integrated into one thing. And I'm just now seeing, have more and more people testing it for coding and everything else. But I'm wondering now, when people are going to use which model. Because as you said, and if you're not following along, Jaden is screen sharing a lot of this stuff. It's always very cool. But, you know, even you and I who are in this world all the time just have no idea when to use which model. They have a couple of words about they're like faster or better for coding or good for everyday tasks and all that sort of stuff. For me, for the most part, it breaks down in two ways. If I need something really thought about, like a really important question, then I'll use reasoning. And if I don't, I don't. That's it. The different kinds of things within those, within different reasoning models and stuff like that, I just don't have any idea, because I was hearing, oh, well, actually, O1 is better than the 3 on this, but O3 mini or whatever. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, Sam Altman had a tweet. I don't know if you saw this. I think it was a couple days ago or something like that, where he was like, look, you can all have until the summer to make fun of us for the naming conventions, and then we are going to change. And it just feels like, I don't know, imagine if they had some special tool that could help them brainstorm new names, right? I mean, like, why don't they just put this into O3 reasoning? But anyway, naming conventions aside, I really do think that I am getting better results out of O3 and out of these reasoning models. And when I combine that with the fact that I can upload images, upload documents, that's huge. And finally, I had mentioned this before, but Jane, you and I talked about this a little bit, but I love Claude for writing and for brand voice and all that kind of stuff. I still think it's kind of best in class. But I got to tell you, over the last couple of weeks, ChatGPT has gotten really, really good. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what's happening. I remember they announced that this was going to sound more human and everything like that a few weeks ago, but I hadn't seen any, those the results of that. And my test is always, what if I upload a few newsletters and I see if it can create a newsletter? I write my own newsletters because I think it's fun. I'm a writer by background, but I want to see if it can, mimic my voice. And now ChatGPT for the first time is starting to do that. So when I combine that with the reasoning, it's giving me fewer and fewer reasons to leave ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'm finding the same thing. I use a lot of different AI models for different things, and it feels like when they start wrapping everything into this one model, I'm like, hey, you know what? This isn't so bad. I'm like, I find myself coming back and testing it. Okay, I want to go over what exactly is, what they've announced is in this. So they say OpenAI 3.0 is a powerful. It's also funny they call OpenAI 3.0 instead of ChatGPT 3.0. Maybe they're trying to
Yeah.
fix the branding, but it's also from the official OpenAI Twitter account. So maybe if it was from the official ChatGPT Twitter account, we'd have a little bit of beef. They'd be calling it something different. I don't know. Anyways, they say this is a powerful model across multiple domains, setting new standards for coding, math, science, and visual reasoning tasks. It's okay. It's pretty decent on the benchmarks, but it actually doesn't crush the past versions by that much. If I'm being 100% honest, if you look at the benchmarks, like it's better at some. But anyways, interestingly, they say O4 Mini is a remarkably smart model for its speed and cost efficiency. This allows it to support significantly higher usage limits than O3, making it a strong, high volume, high throughput option for everyone with questions that benefit from reasoning. So what's interesting is they're saying use the O4 mini model if you need to use reasoning, but you want to get them faster and cheaper. And it's like they're always kind of playing this game of like which model's more optimized, which one's faster and cheaper. I was kind of watching their live demo of these models when they made the big announcement yesterday. I was watching their live release or whatever. And it was pretty quick at doing the reasoning when you're using the mini models. I do think that's really useful. One thing that I thought was interesting, they said the O3 and O4 mini models are the first models to integrate uploaded images directly into their chain of thought. So that means they don't just see an image, they think with it. It's like it's a piece of language. And to me it's kind of interesting because it's like if you speak multiple languages, I speak French and English, if I'm in France for long enough and I'm around people in France for long enough, I start thinking in French. But when I come back to America and I'm talking to everyone, now my thoughts are all just back in English. And somewhere in between, there's like a weird mix where I think like half French and English words, and that's really when my brain goes haywire. But this is what they're doing with images and text. So they're literally thinking with the image. But it's interesting because an image can be so left up to interpretation, right? It's not clean cut as text, but I guess some people would argue, probably you're an English major, Connor, so I'm sure you would argue that the English language is just as left up to interpretation on what a word means. So who knows, right? And maybe a lawyer would agree with you on that, depending on whose side of the case they're on. But in any case, I think this is really interesting that we're now merging text and images into a prompt, but someone could argue it could be interpreted differently. But I don't know. This is really cool. Very, very cool functionality.
Super, super cool. And it also is dovetailing very quickly with, as we remember the new ChatGPT image generator, that's working in a new way. Like it doesn't work through that sort of like the diffusion. It works just in a totally different way, which I don't understand the technology behind it, but I've sort of like watched it and read about it. It's the cool thing about that, Jaden, is that we're starting to get to a stage where it's getting a little bit further than how we can even start to conceptualize. Like to your point about like what does it mean that it thinks with this image? I mean, one of the whole things about these new models is that they're multimodal, meaning like they're doing everything inside this. So what it used to do with ChatGPT, when you wanted to create an image, it would sort of send it out to a different model, and then it would sort of bring it back in. And I think Gemini really pioneered, everything kind of coming into one system. But that's really cool right off the bat. But the other thing is that when you have this reasoning and it's able to look at photos and all that sort of stuff, it sparked this little conversation, Gene, which I don't know if you saw or not, but like some people saying, and by the way, I'm not saying this, but it's just interesting. Some people were sort of starting to say like, well, is this kind of AGI? Is like O3 the beginning of AGI? Now, I don't think so, because it's always been, even back in when GPT-4 came out, people were like, this is AGI. I think we're going to look back and be like, oh, well, this definitely wasn't. But even the fact that they're starting to think this way is huge. And I think it comes from how it processes information, like how it thinks and how sort of like human it's getting. In the same way, if you use it, like are looking at an image and you have to describe it, well, describe it different ways. But yeah, you're using the image as part of as part of the answer, as whatever you're going to give as a human. And that's what's interesting. I think that we are starting to, I don't know about when we're going to kind of cross that bridge, so to speak, to AGI, but I do think that bridge is kind of coming into sight where we're starting to see like, oh, this is why it's going to feel different, because it's really going to feel like you're talking to somebody that's reasoned through things, not just in text, but also through images and everything else.
Yeah, one thing I did want to say that just an interesting little thing I realized while kind of testing this out earlier is I'm recently working on a new project. It's a new podcast. It's a Christian story history kind of podcast. I'm working on an episode for David and Goliath. I was getting ChatGPT to help me come up with a script for it. And I was using the O3 model. And what I noticed is at the top of the chat, it just says ChatGPT. That's the name of the model. If you use O3, it just calls it ChatGPT. Now, if you go back to one of my older chats in my history, I was getting it to come up with some UX. It says ChatGPT 4.0. So evidently, depending on like what you are talking or like which model you're using, they're now moving the newer models to just be called ChatGPT. And I think this is going to be a foreshadowing for when GPT-5 comes out. We're probably just calling this thing ChatGPT moving forward. They're going to pack in new features and say new update to ChatGPT. But you're like for the most part, their branding is going to just have that name instead of having all of these numbers at the end, which I think for most users is going to be honestly appreciated if I'm being 100%
Please
honest. So
God. Yeah.
interesting little finding there.
Yeah, listen, this has been it's just a great dive. I love seeing how you're thinking about this. But folks, get out there, test this stuff, right? You're going to have, especially if you're a Plus user, you can go on, you can test these models. You don't have to be paying $200 a month, but test it out for yourself. Test it out on sort of things that you've tried, and try to get like one or two good prompts that you're always testing it. I have my own kind of, one or two prompts that I always like test the thing on. Test that on the new model, test it for yourself. And listen, if you want to learn even more, if you want to sort of like go behind the scenes, if you want to learn from Jaeden Schafer himself, he has something offline, a school community, SKOOL. It's one of my favorite things out there where he is behind the scenes doing new videos, doing his AI hustle stuff. Like his stories are just like totally wild. And like, even like this, like right live, he's like, yeah, I'm starting this new thing, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even hear about this until Jaeden just said it 2 seconds ago. So get on there, find out his school community. It's less than $20 a month. It is super, super worth it. You are going to love it. And we will see you next time.